Greetings to St. Mark's Lutheran from University Lutheran Church in Seattle, former parish of Pastor Ron Moe-Lobeda. I'm excited to be here today honoring Pastor Ron, who is our longest serving pastor of over 20 years in our 104-year history. He was much loved, and it was hard to see him leave, but wonderful to see him flourishing at St. Mark's in San Francisco. As you're well aware, Pastor Ron has a heart for social justice issues. It's what drew us to him and him to us. Our congregation was responding to the growing need of homelessness in the Seattle area and trying to figure out what group of people needed the most help. Our Social Justice Committee, with Pastor Ron's leadership, realized that single women had very little support here. Pastor Ron had also led an effort in Washington, D.C. to help women called the End Street Ministry. That was an incredible model for homeless women. So it knit together with his experience in his former parish. The heart he has for women's ministries may be due to being the only male sibling with 5 sisters. They schooled him well. Of course, founding the Elizabeth Gregory home was no easy task. Funding was an issue in opening the doors.
I was hired actually to work at Elizabeth Gregory Home in September 2011 as a consultant. And one of my top recommendations was that they needed to hire a full-time executive director. 6 months later, I was offered the position. And I took that position not just because I was passionate about the mission, which of course I am, but because I would get to continue to partner with Ron. He and I took on the obstacles that Elizabeth Gregory Home was facing at the time, which included stabilizing the finances, as well as making sure that all programs were targeting the needs of homeless women that came to our day center to meet all of their essential needs in one location. But there was a stumbling block, a big stumbling block, and that was that we didn't have showers. So Ron and I took it upon ourselves to start looking at where we might have a shower. And we looked at a janitor's closet, but really recognized that was completely inadequate. Then in 2014, a new space became available, and we decided to lease it, and the planning began at that point. Now, I had never had any experience doing any kind of capital or construction project, but Ron was on fire. And he is the master of convening. He convened many people for the project, including architects and vendors, a project manager, and a contractor. So off we went. Fast forward to 2016, when we cut the ribbon and celebrated the opening of the Moe-Lobeda Wellness Center, which includes not only 2 showers, accessible toilet, a classroom, a wellness room, and 3 offices. Ron's founding legacy has not only survived, but thrived. Over the years, we've doubled the number of women we've been able to offer services to. We expanded our space and our programs. We have increased exponentially the number of staff, volunteers, and board members. And most importantly, we are now fiscally sound. But the magic of Ron's transformative leadership truly is rooted far beyond his roll up your sleeve and get it done ethic. His gift is that he embodies HSL, HSL, which means heard, seen, and loved. Heard. If you have ever had the opportunity to be in Ron's presence, whether individually or a group, you know what it means to be deeply listened to. Seen. Ron speaks with his eyes. One of my favorite looks is what I call the Ron sparkle. And that might mean enthusiasm, excitement, and most of all, new ideas. Then there is the Ron squint. And the Ron squint might be his questioning, or it might be his disdain for injustice. And then there is simply the Ron closing his eyes. And that is always a reminder to me of how important it is to pause and reflect. Finally, loved. Ron's lasting impact on each one of us, Elizabeth Gregory home, was his presence as a loving, kind, safe, and compassionate being. Ron may be retiring, but I know he's not done. Ron will be touching many more lives, and lucky are those that get to experience him and all of his gifts. Congratulations, Ron.
Thanks to Pastor Ron, our building was and remains well used. In addition to EGH, we house Share Wheel, a woman's overnight shelter, and Sanctuary Arts Center, an art studio serving homeless youth. We were designated a greening congregation by Earth Ministries and became a Reconciling in Christ congregation under Pastor Ron. Ron guided U-District Ecumenism, supporting Teen Feed, a hot meal program, and Roots, a U-District youth shelter. There were also years working to create a University District ecumenical campus to house 11 faith organizations under one roof. It ultimately did not happen, but working with other faith traditions for the common good remains a focus for ULC and a hallmark of Ron's influence. We support Open Door Ministries serving the LGBTQ+ community and join with other local churches in support of the Ilanga Junior Lutheran Seminary in Tanzania, Africa. Pastor Ron helped start annual youth trips to Ilanga for cultural and spiritual exchange. And as if that wasn't enough, he found spare time to help birth Faith Action Network.
Hello, everybody. I'm Carol Jensen, an ELCA pastor retired from the parish, and I worked with Ron for almost 2 decades in faith-based advocacy efforts in Washington State. In my experience, a majority of Lutheran pastors support efforts of their congregation to help people in need. A much smaller number make preaching and teaching social justice a core part of their ministry. And few and far between are pastors who take that commitment to social justice into the streets and the halls of power. And Ron was about all three. We worked together with Paul Benz and the Lutheran Public Policy Office of Washington State, helping it grow its network of advocating congregations and multiply its effectiveness in impacting our elected leaders. By 2008 or so, LPPO was really on a roll, and non-Lutheran congregations wanted to join. We began to dream about how LPPO might work ecumenically and also interreligiously, and we started talking with faith leaders outside of our Lutheran network about creating a statewide interfaith advocacy organization. Ron was deeply part of that dreaming in many long meetings, bringing vision, wisdom, good questions, and a strong organizing perspective to the conversations. 10 years ago, the Faith Action Network of Washington State was born with the merger of the Lutheran Public Policy Office and the Washington Association of Churches, and a plan of becoming interfaith, which has been realized. Ron was truly one of the parents who gave birth to FAN, as we now call it, an organization with over 160 advocating congregations and a budget of over $400,000 a year. Ron was instrumental in the early days of FAN. He helped make the organization work, serving where he was needed. He encouraged his congregation to become advocates and supporters of FAN's agenda. He brought people to FAN's annual Advocacy Day in Olympia. He and Cynthia have been major donors to FAN over the years, and Ron was the person to ask folks to give at least 3 of our annual fundraising dinners. He was good at it. And in fact, we brought him back the fall after he moved to the Bay Area to do that again. I also remember being at various demonstrations and marches over the years with Ron and Cynthia, bringing the witness of the Church for Justice directly into the public square. We've missed Ron on many levels and hope that he and Cynthia will be back in Seattle one day. Ron, I bring very best wishes on your retirement from the folks at FAN, and as we all know, you never retire from the work of advocacy.
In 2014, the Church Council of Greater Seattle awarded University Lutheran Church, led by Pastor Ron, the Pioneering Spirit Award for, quote, faithfully walking the talk on behalf of people in transition and shining as a beacon of gospel-centered justice and human rights for the transformation of the world, end quote. This was an affirmation of Pastor Ron's leadership. In June of 2016, as he was concluding his ministry in Seattle, the City of Seattle issued a proclamation honoring Pastor Ron, recognizing his service to the people of Seattle, and specially commended his efforts on behalf of homeless women. After receiving the city's recognition, this prophetic message was heard in the City Council chambers.
Thank you, City Council members, for this honor. I'm not the only one being honored here today. I represent the entire faith community in Seattle, and by honoring me, you are honoring the entire faith community that is so involved in this city in attempting to reduce the amount of homelessness in this city. I wish I had a magic bullet to offer to you and to the city in the way of reducing homelessness throughout the city and the whole region. I don't. What I would offer today is just a couple of value-based suggestions that I think you probably agree with, and also exemplify. First, in my tradition, all of us, including all homeless people, are children of God. And I would hope that that is the first lens through which we see everyone on the streets. And then respond accordingly. And secondly, again, from my tradition, Jesus was a very strong advocate for the year of the Jubilee. It was a year that stems deep into the Jewish roots of history. And one of the tenets of the year of the Jubilee was that in the 50th year, the land would be redistributed so that those who had lost their land, lost their homes, in the course of those 50 years, it would be returned to them. It's an ideal, but it's also a value and a tenet of our lifelong traditions. We have a great community here that does a lot of philanthropy, but we, as we all know, philanthropy is on a volunteer basis. You are in a position of helping this entire city redistribute the wealth of this city through your legislation. And I would simply ask in departing that you would continue to do that, to use your positions of power to help redistribute the wealth in this city. Thank you.
Yeah. Amen.
Here is what some members of the congregation had to say about Pastor Ron. He is a joyous person with energy and optimism, centered on the work of justice and equitable balance for everyone. He easily loved and cherished people. It was always a pleasure to be in his company. He had the best sense of a spirit-filled pastoral leader, ready to serve the needs of the church, university, and ELCA. He was a man of integrity who walked the talk. He respected the congregational leaders to move the congregation forward to spirit-filled action. He had a great dedication to his family, helping raise Leif and Gabriel while supporting Cynthia in her doctoral education between Seattle and New York City. On the personal side, he loved his vegetable garden, sometimes played the accordion for the church events. He had a love of John Denver and a love of church softball games. ULC was in a softball league for many years, and Pastor Ron was the pitcher. The only time I saw his personality change was when he was playing softball and his competitive nature took over. We were right there with him. Congratulations on your retirement, Pastor Ron. We are sending blessings and love from your flock at University Lutheran.